From the start to the finish, go hard and we winning. It's the heart of a villain, it's the heart of a villain. From the start to the finish, go hard and we winning. It's the heart of a villain, it's the heart of a villain. Hey yo, heart of a villain beats hard in the centrifuge. Bearded BP 100 interviews. All it takes is 2 mics and 1 line. This is Bearded Villains podcast worldwide. Driving cross countries, getting ball tires. Fam across ponds, always inspired. Chapters connect, and then it's on fire. Check your phone, cause BV is like a live wire. They said that we couldn't do it and that another could. Never underestimate the power of brotherhood. Every bro, every chapter, every caption. Heart of a villain, bro, lights, camera, action. Action, action, action. Let's go. From the start to the finish, go hard and we winning. It's the heart of a villain.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Thursday night edition of The Heart of a Villain, a podcast and live stream devoted to the Bearded Villains Worldwide Brotherhood. Hey, guys. What a night, what a day. My head is all over the place tonight. This could be a dumpster fire of a show tonight, and I apologize in advance for that. But hey, this is episode 189. 189. Next week, we move into the 90s. 190. Never looking back. Within 10 episodes of the big 200. Now, you might think that that means we're going to do something super fancy special like we did for the 100th episode, and maybe we will, but that has yet to be determined. My head's been pulled in about 15 different directions in the last few weeks, and so just making it work to get a show going each week has been a struggle some days. And again, this is one of those days too, because my plan was to be able to bring on Mario or somebody that's over in Ghent to talk about the World Meet, to talk about the preparations and all. And we've been talking back and forth, Mario and I, about trying to make this thing work, because obviously there's a 7-hour, it's 3 a.m. there right now. There's a 7-hour time difference, and with all the preparations he's been busy with, and other show things and different things that I've been busy with, and kids' school, delivering kids to college, and all this other stuff, it's been very difficult. So unfortunately, even today, I was trying to see about figuring something out, and we haven't been able to hook up. So I don't know if we're going to do an interview after the fact or what, but suffice it to say that tonight we're just going to talk about a few topics and hopefully have some input from some people that are here live with us tonight, and we'll just see where the night takes us. It's another one of those choose your own adventure nights here on the Heart of a Villain. So that's where episode 189 is going to take us tonight. Can you believe? I have a hard time believing this is the 24th of. We have, I guess technically we'll have one more? No, we won't even have one more, will we? It's crazy in this month. Let's see, do the math, carry the one, even odd months. So yeah, I think we will. But yeah, episode 190 right around the corner, and we push on into 200 episodes. That's crazy to think of. And for the most part, I mean, with a few hit and miss, weeks here and there, it's been every week, 200, nearly 200 episodes. That, with the exception of the first, handful of episodes that were bi-weekly or something like that, or every few weeks. But man, where has the time gone? Where has the time gone? It's funny because today, or earlier this week, I was thinking back to some of the previous episodes and how long ago, I talked to, because when you do, darn near 200 of these episodes, they run together. They do. In my head, they kind of run together. And I'm trying to think of, I know for those of you listening on standard podcast platforms, or those of you who've been watching on live streams for a while, you're aware of, oh yeah, I think he interviewed, or he talked about this, that one time. And for all of you who think it's, hard to keep things straight, in my head, it's 10 times worse. And so I was trying to think back, and I was realizing that man, I've reached a point where there's a handful of people that I've, more than a handful really, that I've spoken to and interviewed over the years about BV and about their chapter and about, how it's changed their life and things like that, that no longer are a part of BV for one reason or another. And I was thinking back to, when I spoke to somebody about this chapter or this chapter or this chapter, and I realized that person's no longer the captain, but not even in their chapter anymore, not even in BV anymore. And it kind of speaks a little bit to the rarity of what this club is and what we've been able to make it over the last several years, and that it's just not for everybody. And it kind of brings up a topic that we've talked about before, and it brings in the ideas and the topics of leadership. It talks about the idea where we ask ourselves, who are we? What are we doing enough? That kind of thing. And I know we've had some of those conversations before, but it was just one of those weird nostalgic things for me to think back and be like, hey, this is kind of crazy, because it made me really kind of proud of the longevity of this show so far. And maybe it's just stick to itiveness, as they say. Maybe it's just I'm just too bullheaded to stop doing these shows. Maybe it's a little bit of perseverance. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too stubborn to stop too. And this is just my release. And I've said that so many times, on this show, that this show is as much your show as it is my show. And when I say your show, I mean everybody that's here that's been watching, listening in various forms from the beginning. There's been people that were really, really big supporters of the show and watched and or listened weekly for the first year, and then no longer, we don't see them anymore, and that's okay. That's okay. There's people that pop in when they can. There's people that we see for a few weeks and then they disappear, and we see them again, a few months later. That's great. That's kind of what we're here for. And I want this show to kind of be a steady, the thing that keeps things steady, a steady ship in the night, as you will, or whatever it is, where people always know that it's here, and if they want to listen, they can. If they don't have to. But what that means is, for everybody that does listen on a super regular basis, sometimes you're going to hear topics that are recovered, that new information comes in, and that's kind of the way things go when you're a solo podcaster, taking care of, talking about the wheres and whys of a social club. We can't, I can't, this thing would be super boring, I think, for everybody involved if every single time, we come in here and I'm just talking about, well, there's this event and this, and we just have the same questions every time. And I love being able to delve into the whys. I love being able to think a little bit deeper about things, and why we do the things that we do. Um, why we say the things we say, why we act the way we do. And I think for me, one of the most amazing things that this brotherhood has done for me personally, and that this show has done for me through this brotherhood, is that it's helped me grow in ways that I did not know that I needed to. It's helped me continue to grow um, as a more understanding person, and I always felt like I was pretty understanding. And I think my career in law enforcement really kind of furthered that and helped me out with that, and to realize, how people act and see people not for their actions, but who they are, and look beyond specific actions and all that. But one of the things that, that this has really helped me out with is, um, it's reminded me how important patience is. It's reminded me how important personal personal development is. And when I say that, I'm talking about giving yourself the time to let yourself grow, recognizing your faults. But more importantly than that, I think for me, what it's allowed me to do is to connect with people in a way that normally I wouldn't. And I think because of this show, and because some people know that I do it, or some people just know that it exists, when I go to events and things like that, sometimes I'll just get into a conversation with somebody that I've not interviewed, somebody that I've never, formally interviewed in any way, shape, or form, that I was meeting for the first time. And then we have those meaningful conversations. It's allowed me to feel comfortable in that environment. That's one thing that this show has really done, has allowed me to feel comfortable in those first settings, those first moments of a conversation where I'm actually getting to know somebody and I feel comfortable doing that. I think too often um, we give lip service to somebody when we go to these events and we meet somebody for the first time. It's very easy to just kind of gloss over things and just kind of look past them a little bit. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, and you ask those simple questions. And when you're talking to somebody, there's that whole talk about, are you listening or are you hearing somebody? And the differences between listening to something and hearing something. And I've always, and for the last, many years of my adult life, it was once pointed out to me that one of the best ways that you can determine if you're truly listening to somebody or not is if you are developing an answer to what it is, or a response to whatever it is they're saying while they're still saying it. If they're trying to tell you something about themselves, if they're trying to give you an answer to something or talk about something, if you're starting to formulate an answer to respond to that while they're still trying to talk, so that as soon as they finish the sentence, you're like, oh, yeah, and it's so hard to do. It really is. It's very hard to do. But I had some interactions, I know, when I was out in Las Vegas with some bros, and I had some interactions with a few different, with some brothers at different meets. I had some really fun one-on-one interactions with some people that were not affiliated with Bearded Villains, that were in a different beard club, at an event down in Columbus, Indiana a few weeks ago. And it's such a cool moment when you can really connect with somebody and know that you're listening to them, and know that you know you can see it. You can see it while you're talking to them, that there's almost a surprise. Sometimes that to me is a really cool moment when you're talking to somebody and you can see, it's almost like there's a surprise in their face, in their eyes, that, wow, somebody's really listening to me. Somebody's actually taking the time to listen. Too often, I think so much about this life that we've lived now in this social media world. We always, it's always type. It's always get your answers out quick. It's always respond, respond, respond. And the interaction, the one-on-one, the face-to-face communication has just gone down the toilet. It's so reduced and it's so trash. It's out the door. Nobody does it anymore, it seems. And it's even gotten worse with the development of all these remote jobs where everybody can work remotely from home. So you don't even have to talk to people anymore if you don't really want to. Everything's remote. Everything's digital. And for me, that that sitting in front of somebody and looking them in the eyes and being able to talk to them and say, yeah, I and even if it takes a second for you to formulate an answer, that's okay. I would much rather have that long pause when I'm trying to, I know you're listening then. I know you're trying to, you're assessing what it is that I just told you. And it's not a preformed phrase or a preformed response. And that to me, wow, that's one of those things that it's just that personal connection that I love, and that's one of those things that this show has really helped me out with, and really allowed me to feel comfortable in that setting and in that environment. And so I'm so grateful for everybody that has been here through these 189 episodes. Um, I'm sure one day down the road, I have no idea when that is because I can't. That's something I can't see. Somewhere down the road, maybe. Um, I'll have to say, I'll flip the lights off and the camera off for the last time and say it's been a good run. But that day's not here. That day's nowhere in my sight. Maybe one day I'll have to, determine that it's time for me to hang up the microphone for this show and hand it off to somebody else. I don't know. But I'm just excited. And every week that I come in here and get to talk to this, it's funny because I say this, and these are just random thoughts right now, guys. It's funny because as I say this, and I'm talking to this camera, and I'm looking right into it, so the people that are watching this thing live, or they're watching this, recorded later, they can see me as I'm talking about this personal connection and wanting to talk to somebody and look in their eyes, and it looks like I'm just looking into your eyes, but all I'm looking at right now as I say this thing, talking about this connection, I'm looking into this circular black abyss. I'm looking at this black abyss of a camera staring me in the face, this long lens that's about as far away from my face as I could reach my arm out and touch it. And that's what I have to do. I have to look at that thing in order to look at you guys. I don't see the faces. And that's one of those really odd things about what we do here and what this is that sometimes it doesn't feel very personal, but it's my job to try and make it that way. It's my job to try and make you feel. And so there's this weird thing that, those first few episodes that we did with video, it's with a camera. It was odd because I didn't know, where am I supposed to look? Where am I going to look? And over time, you get more and more comfortable with that. There's a trick people a lot of times say where they tell you when you're first trying to do these live stream things and you're trying to do video podcasting and whatever it is, they tell you to put take a piece of tape and cut it out in the shape of an arrow and stick it right next to your lens. So it reminds you that that's where you have to look. But anymore, this is just a happy face right in front of me, this big black thing and this big black lens that's staring me in the face. That's my happy place right now. So I'm so grateful for everybody that has been here in the past. Even if you're not here now, even if you no longer follow the show, you were part of the growth of this show. You were part of its time frame, and that's been a really cool thing. So I'm so grateful for all that. Real quick, I want to say hi to the people that are here live, and it's kind of funny. You see me keep looking down here. It's because I'm glancing over at the preseason football game that my team is playing on right now. Yes, I know it's only preseason, but it's still interesting to me anyway. So, but I wasn't going to postpone the show for it. It's only preseason. But I want to say hi to the people that are here live with us and people that have taken some time to make some comments and chime in with us and say, hey, how we doing here? Mr. Brian Dahlstrom from my chapter, BV Northern Indiana. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you. That man is the man that looks like a wizard. He's tall with a big, long beard. I always refer to him as a wizard. Buddy is hanging out with us as well. Evening, guys. Hope everybody had a good week. Yes. Man, we're here, right? We're here. It couldn't have been too bad. Hot in most of the country. I know that. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Howdy, y'all. What's up, Jacked Up? Leatherworks. Good to see you here. Mr. Jake Clancy. How's things up north? Is it as hot as it is here? I know you guys got a heck of a sunburn, or I heard somebody got a sunburn when he was up there visiting you. A little further up north. Hey, Mars, how you doing today? Good to see you. Good to see you. Can't wait for our Friday night call tomorrow night. That's always going to be fun. Lakeshore Lounge. I think, is that still what you're calling it? I don't even know what you're calling it anymore because I just click on the link. A Friday night video call. If anybody doesn't know this, got to give a shout out to the Lakeshore guys because they have instituted, and you know what? It's really neat because it's gone on long past the COVID times and everything else, and it's continued to be a really cool thing. That's, again, it's something that the Lakeshore chapter, those Lakeshore guys created. It's something that they have kept going And there have been nights when some of their guys, one or two of their guys couldn't be there and somebody else had to moderate. But it's a really cool thing where it's just a video call. It's just a Google video call. And sometimes we have 5 people in there. Sometimes we have 25 people in there from all over the world. And it's a really cool time to connect with brothers and talk to them. And it is, the conversations get pretty crazy in there sometimes. You never know, night to night, you never know, week to week, what's going to be talked about, who's going to be in there, who you're going to be, ribbing, jabbing, and having some fun with. And it's just an awesome night. So I don't always get in there every Friday night. Sometimes I feel the tug of family that says I need to spend the time with them instead. So I never know until I get there, but sometimes I try to pop in there as often as I can. So if you didn't know about it, keep track of the line chats because they post the link in just about every one of the major line chats that are out there. So again, thanks Mars for that. Yeah, talking about what we were talking about earlier, Leatherworks says, yeah, it's actually good for the show. It's showing growth. Yeah, 100 and almost 90 episodes now. Kevin, how you doing? Kevin says, cheers from Canada. He's also with Lakeshore. Good to see it. He has a suggestion for me. He says, we need to put all our pictures up on the wall behind the mic. Wow. So I'm sorry. I don't have the green screen capability to do that, to create a all for one green screen behind me. Plus, I kind of like all the junk behind me up on those shelves. That's just the randomness that it is. But yeah, the pictures would be kind of cool. Maybe we'll do like a weekly shout out for somebody that's been a long time listener, first time caller type of thing. Yeah. Mars says Lakeshore Lounge still going almost 3 years strong. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Every Friday night, it's the place to be. All right. I wanted to give a shout out while I'm talking about Canada. I wanted to give a shout out to the boys at Okanagan because, as some of you may know, and maybe not everybody does know, it seems like this year has been the year of wildfires. Every year there's wildfires, I know, but Canada has struggled mightily with wildfires, it seems. And I don't know the history of, wildfires in Canada, and I don't know, if it's a thing that happens every year and and this is just a typical wildfire year in Canada or not. But I know that they've had some bad ones this year. And I know that one of the things that old Matty up there with Okanagan brought to my attention was he said that they've still got a handful of these patches that they're doing, the chapter patches. And they are going to donate the proceeds for the remaining patches that they do have available to help with the wildfires. So I wanted to give a shout out to them, a special shout out tonight to them. These chapter patches, the very, very cool imagery, very clear, very bold logo that they've got there for OKBV. And this patch is available for $15, and there's only a handful left. So if you can afford just a mere $15, please get over there to okbv.bigcartel.com. Again, the proceeds for the remaining sales of this patch are going to be going to to help fight or help with the recovery for the wildfires that's been going on over there. So if you've been watching the news, you know how destructive and just incredible that this has wiped out communities, and people have been killed and lives, lost, touched, and lives have been touched forever for what these wildfires have done. So big shout out to OKBV. Get over there, okbv.bigcartel.com. This is one of those things that sometimes you don't necessarily always need everybody's patch, right? But sometimes when somebody comes out and says, this patch we're going to be doing something really good with the proceeds for, those are the ones that you really want to step up for. So if you can, get over there at okbv.bigcartel.com and see what you can do to help them out. So big shout out there. All right. I want to take just a quick second, take a sip of Banquet. So let's see. Do I have any Do I have any fun music that you can listen to while I do this? Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, thank you for indulging my thirst there. I was talking for almost 20 minutes, nonstop. So, also, while we're just kind of in between conversation pieces here, and anybody that wants to obviously chime in the comment section here, chime in if you have any thoughts as to what we're talking about here today, and we'll we'll see if we can add your comments in and bring you into the show in some way, shape, or form. I want to give another shout out to Megan's book. You guys heard me interview her last week, and you heard me talk a little bit about this book. Well, a lot about this book last week's episode. Um, if you have not picked up this book, and like I told you before, it's a pricey book. I mean, it really is. If you're used to spending $5 to $10 on books anymore, if you're used to just getting books on tape, that kind of a thing, then yeah, it's a purchase. It really is a purchase. But one of the coolest things about these kind of books are these last the test of time. And this kind of a book is something that you can be proud of. You can set it out on your coffee table or whatever else, set it out somewhere. You have people over, people that know you're affiliated with the Bearded Villains, and that it's a big part of your life. And it's something to display. It's something to share with other people. And if people have any questions about what it is that this thing that is Bearded Villains does, I think this book does a really good job of not specifically talking about Bearded Villains as a whole, because what is that? It's dependent upon each person and each journey that each man has, and it's dependent upon each different chapter and wherever you're talking about. But I think what it does show is the diversity of Bearded Villains. It shows, that it's not all one. There's not just a bearded villain. There's no typical bearded villain. I think that's what I'm looking for. When you think of bearded villains, there is no typical, right? There's no cookie cutter version of a bearded villain. And I think that this book does such a great job of showing that. All shapes, sizes, colors, the heritage of some, people's background. It's just, and their reasons for wanting to be a part of BV. Some of the guys that are featured in this book, they talk a little bit about what it was that made them want to be a bearded villain, what they saw in bearded villains. And so I think that's just such a really cool thing. So I won't go too much. I won't go any more detail about that because we did that last week, but just a really cool thing. And the reason that it was kind of funny because sometimes when you're looking at things, you're reading things, and then you come across something else just kind of randomly out of the blue, and it makes you go, huh, how funny is that? I was just talking about that, or I was just reading about that, or something like that. Every once in a while, and I don't know if you do this. I do this just because it's something I do because I prepare for this weekly show. And as a captain of my chapter, I want to keep an eye on any trends that are out there in the universe, or any comments that are out there, weird threads that are out there talking about bearded villains in general. So every once in a while, I go out there and I'll Google bearded villains and scroll through the interwebs and see what pops up and what kind of conversations pop up and different things. And I found there was if you go out there right now and you Google bearded villains, one of the things you'll come across is a Reddit feed from several years ago, probably 6 years ago, maybe 7, where the question was, are these guys for real in this Reddit forum? And this guy talks about, well, these guys look like just a bunch of really strange dudes I wouldn't want to hang out with because they're so worried about their beards. And it's funny because when you talk about labels, when you talk about, not seeing past what's right there in front of you, when you look at first impressions and you formulate your whole opinion based off of an image or based off of a social media post, and that's the downside to the life that we live nowadays. And it's also, I think, truly a downside to what bearded villains may suffer from in the future if if guys aren't careful. If guys aren't careful to be a part of their community, if they aren't careful to get out there and open themselves up to being out in the community, communicating with people, having those connections, all people will see is what people post. And we we have we live in a world today where um, we depend on information so much, and we depend on information to our detriment because we don't always source the information, right? We don't always source the information that we read. We see information that gets shared, we see information that gets posted. And as the saying goes, there's always three sides to the story: one side, two sides, and the truth, somewhere in between, usually. And so it's a weird life that we're in right now, where we're dependent on information, we seek information, but and I do believe this to be true. For the last 20 or 30 years, you know, we have not, as a people, we have not done a good job of researching to see if what we're being told, if what's being told to us, how accurate it is. There was a time, growing up, and I know the feeling of it, and many of people that are in their 40s, 50s, and up will remember this time. There was a time when some of the most respectable people out there were news people, were reporters, and you didn't have to wonder if a story was being canted to one side or the other for the benefit of somebody else. It happened, but you didn't have to worry about it because every news station reported the same news story, and every one of them had maybe a little slightly different approach to it or something like that, but the information was the same. The information was the same. You didn't have multiple sources giving completely opposing versions of it, making it very difficult now as it sits, making it so difficult for us to try and determine who's telling the truth. And so as I'm looking through this thing and I'm scrolling through and I see this as I get back to this topic, I see this question: are these guys for real? People immediately I saw in the comment section of this kind of jumped on the bandwagon and were like, "What a bunch of what a bunch of douches! What a bunch of calling just because I just googled this. I can't believe they're for real." They seem like a bunch. I mean, and there were all sorts of names out there in these comment sections, just because all they did was look up and see that there are bearded villains hashtags out there and people taking pictures and sharing pictures of that. They have no idea why that was happening. They had no care to understand. They had no care to understand that that's only such a small piece of what bearded villains is. And there were a few people that chimed in that I didn't know their handle on Google. Some people actually said, over the course of the last 7 years since this Reddit thread started, some people chimed in over the last few years. I'm a bearded villain. If you want to have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Some people chimed in. I've got friends that are bearded villains. This is what they're about. Yeah, the social media part is part of it, but don't worry. That's something that most of them don't like either. And but it's, that whole thing reminded me how fragile information can be. And it's something simple. It really is. Because as I looked back it took a lot. It really did. Even though this thread's 7 years old and nobody's probably looking at it, maybe a couple people look at it a year, but it took a lot for me not to want to post something into that thread saying, hey, you know, Why don't you get to know somebody? Why don't you get to know what this is about before commenting randomly on it? Because that's the life we live now. We're a bunch of the life is a bunch of keyboard warriors out there. You can say what you want to say without any hesitation because you don't have to answer for the things that you say. It's very simple. And how funny is it that that transfers to so many different parts in our life? And the reason I'm slowly getting into one of the other topics that I wanted to talk about tonight, and talking about, are we doing enough, um, and talking about how much leadership matters within BV. I mean, are we doing enough to ensure that our message is clear? Are we doing enough to ensure that the people out there that might come across the knowledge of what we're about, are we doing enough to share with them who we are and what we're about? There's always going to be a time where people, can see with their own eyes, and they see something and they want to form an instant opinion about something without doing. That's the life we live right now. One thing gets posted and immediately everybody wants to say, "Oh, what a terrible thing that is," without looking into it. And that happens in so many different parts of our lives. And it's something as simple as, it translates from, the question 7 years ago where somebody was asking, are these guys for real? What is, oh my gosh, what a bunch of tools these guys are. Instant opinion formed by one person's statement. And then it's so easy to jump on a bandwagon of that because you see one image or you see one thing and you're like, okay. In life, information is so important. And we have become a society that feels unnecessary for us to do our homework because there's so many news sources out there. There's so many different ways to obtain information. You figure somebody, oh, I really like the stuff that this thing puts out, so that must be accurate. Really? I mean, there's certain news sources that I follow that I would like to think that they're honest and truthful, but you know full well they're not 100% of the way. Everything. I wish there was one news source out there that was 100% honest, that was giving both sides of a story, you know, without canting it off to the side. I've been told sometimes if you watch some of the overseas, some of the, if you watch some of the news reportings about news from America, from like England, or some sources over there, that sometimes they at least get it to the point where they don't throw bias to either side. They just give information, and sometimes they cover it from both sides. I don't know. I've not watched much of that. But there's always going to be somebody out there that has something to gain from somebody else's loss, right? That's the sad truth of it. There's always going to be somebody out there that has something to gain by somebody else's loss. And so as long as that happens, we have to question information. So we have to make sure that we are putting out the proper information. We have to make sure that we are sharing with the world what we are about. And when I say we, I mean you. Because not every chapter does things different, the same. Over 150 chapters in this brotherhood, every single one of our chapters runs things differently. Every single chapter is different in what's important to them, in what matters to them most, the brotherhood or the charity parts of it. We have many chapters out there that, if I hate to say, but there's chapters out there that if somebody's only experience is with Bearded Villains is that chapter out there, and they're one of the least active chapters out there in the world, people are gonna form an opinion of that. They're gonna form an opinion that, oh, well, they don't really do much. Oh, but wait just a second. You try telling this chapter down here this. You try telling this chapter over here this. Because not 3 weeks goes by and they're not doing some sort of charity event. Not 2 weeks goes by that they're not getting together as chapter members to have a cookout, have, hangout time with their brothers. While there's other chapters that if they get to see most of their brothers once a year, it's a big thing. And I know these thoughts, I know this is kind of all over the place. There's kind of a home base I'm aiming for here that I keep coming back to. But this is what happens when you have a choose your own adventure night, right? But I think we do have to sometimes step back and think, are we doing enough? Are we doing enough to show who we are? Are we doing enough to show what we're about? And you're never going to please everybody. And so you shouldn't try to. If you can hang your hat on what you do and how you live your life at the end of the day and be happy with it, that's all you need. I'm not saying that you need to live your life to, justify actions or to appease any other person in this world. By all means, that is not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that we need to be careful that the fact that it always needs to be considered that you, that me, that I, that my brothers in my chapter, every single one of us individually represents not only yourself, but represents your chapter and represents Bearded Villains as a whole. And the actions of one person can sometimes change perspectives of an entire club, of an entire chapter. And so I think it's really important for us to be aware of that, to be sure that we constantly are asking ourselves, are we doing enough? Are we doing enough to represent yourself, represent your chapter, and represent the club in the way that you want to, and in the way that your brothers would be proud of? We're all in this for different personal reasons, but at the end of the day, we all want to be a good brother. We have different perspectives of what that is. I know that for sure. Everybody's definition of what a good brother is slightly different, I'm sure, in some ways, depending on where you live and what your experiences have been. But at the end of the day, you want to be a good brother and you want to be a good role model for yourself, for your kids, for the community. Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Hey guys, there's still a handful of you here live that got to listen to that whole diatribe, and I appreciate that. I just went off on some random tangent tonight. But again, those of you who've been around for a while know that sometimes happens. So you'll take it, right? I want to give a quick shout out for, let's talk about a little bit of our calendar of events. So I'm going to bring back this music here. This is our old calendar of events music that we had pop up here. So what we got on tap here? Let's see. Coming up. This was last week, so we're going to forget about that. Today, it's the World Meet, starting this week. Today, depending on where you're at in the world, it could be tomorrow already. It's today here, tomorrow, today, over there. Anyway, it's the 26th. So the 25th is the meet and greet. The 26th is the event. World Meet, Bearded Villains Belgium is your host. If you're not already over there, I don't know what to tell you because you're probably not going to make it. Sorry for your luck. Beardanuga is coming up. Beardanuga, September 2nd. Beardanuga should tell you where it's at, in Chattanooga, Tennessee. They got a beard competition. It's at White Lightning Harley Davidson. This is a really cool event because it's coming together of 5 different chapters. 5 different chapters coming together. It's the Rocket City chapter. It's the 3-star villains. Hey, look at that. I just so happen to be wearing their shirt tonight. 3-star villains, Chattanooga villains. Then we got the Smoky Mountain villains and the North Georgia bearded villains. All 5 of them coming together for this event. Beardanuga at White Lightning Harley Davidson. It's on September 2nd, Saturday, September 2nd. Also coming up in September on the 16th is the Battleborn Killer Beard Competition 2. Battleborn Killer Beard Competition 2 at Seven Sirens Brewery, September 16th. Hosted by your buddies over there at BVPA East. BVPA East is your host for that bad boy. Going to be a good time. Then in October, we got ECM. ECM, the Queen City Bearded Villains is your host. Come on down to Charlotte. Come on down there. Get on into Charlotte. October 13th and 14th. Friday the 13th. That's right, Friday the 13th. I got to get me a Friday the 13th tattoo. Don't tell my wife. I think this Friday I'm going to try and this year on Friday the 13th on the 13th. I think I got to try and find a way to finally get a 13th tattoo. Don't tell my wife. Friday the 13th, and then Saturday the 14th is the event. Location is not listed on this here flyer. It says to be decided. Hopefully they decided by now where that's going to be. ECM, October 13th and 14th. Next up, we got All Villains Eve. All Villains Eve at Desert Wind Harley Davidson. Desert Wind. It gives you a hint to where it might be, right? It's in Mesa, Arizona. Mesa, Arizona. Saturday, October 21st. The first of 2 events that we know we have in BV circles on the 21st. Saturday, October 21st in Mesa, Arizona. All Villains Eve. This is an event that has raffles, costume contest, face painting, and a professional wrestling event. I said it. A professional wrestling event going on at Desert Wind Harley Davidson. Let's kick some music back on here to finish this thing up here. So that's Saturday, October 21st, 2023. Hit up the boys in Phoenix. The Phoenix Villains are your host for that if you have any questions about that one. And then finally, my chapter up here in northern Indiana brings you the return of Ezra Crow. The Return of Ezra Crow, October 21st, 2023. It's at the Hobart Moose Lodge in Hobart, Indiana. That's up here in northern Indiana, about a half hour, 40 minutes south of Chicago. It's going to be a bad, bad time. We got a costume contest. We got a beard competition. We got games. We got raffles. We got all sorts of stuff. And a tattoo contest. A tattoo contest, right? We're going to have a best male tattoo, best female tattoo, and a worst tattoo. A worst tattoo. You can enter in however many bad tattoos you have. If you got a whole slew of bad tattoos, for $5 a piece, you could enter in each one of those. Pretty cool. And the winner of the bad tattoo contest gets a cover-up. So that is worth price of admission, really, alone. So if you got a bad tattoo, show up. Come on. You don't even have to have a beard. We'd love for you to dress up if you want, but come on in. It's going to be a really fun time. That's the Return of Ezra Crow. Return of Ezra Crow, October 21st, Northern Indiana. Come on and hang out with us. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to see. We're going to go back to this one. All right, so that's what that is. Guys, if you have any questions or anything else, hit me up. If you have any other information, if you have any events that I did not cover so far, please let me know, and I will get them on the sheet so we can do it. If you have a flyer, especially, it would be really cool so I can throw a flyer up here on the screen while I'm talking about it. But hey, that's about all I have for this fun Thursday night. I don't know what else to go. Make sure, I'll give one more shout out real quick to this. If you can, get out there and grab one of these Okanagan patches, okbv.bigcartel.com. I would love to see these sold out by the weekend. So let's do what we can, pass the word around, share the pictures, share the imagery, Share the posts, okbv.bigcartel.com. Let's see what we can do to come together and make this thing happen. Sound good? Sounds good to me. All right. Well, guys, you know what this music means. It's going to wrap up episode 189 of The Heart of a Villain. Thank you so much for those of you who have been here live with us tonight. Hey, if you're listening on a regular podcast platform, I really appreciate you guys. You guys have been the heart and soul of this thing from the beginning, and you guys have been loyal listeners. I love it. That's what this thing started out as long before it was even a live stream. So thank you guys so much for being here. I want to challenge all of you guys, as I do every week, to say, be the villain that the world needs you to be, because the heart of a villain never stops beating. What are the most important words I say every week, guys? Remember them well. It's okay not to be okay. If you are hurting, please find a brother to talk to. Remember, it's okay not to be okay. So, guys, hey, have a great night. Enjoy this weekend. Stay cool where it's hot. If it's hot, stay cool. Something like that. You know what I meant. Just stay cool. Find some air conditioning if you need to. All right, guys. Until next week, I'll see you back here for episode 190 next week. Until then, take care and stay safe.